Hello, we are the Color Together Foundation, and we are seeking to stop the cruel acts of racism that are currently happening in South Africa. Racism in South Africa is a big problem since we believe here at Color Together that nobody should be judged by their race, their skin color, or their ethnic group. Together, we color the world. Our mission is to end most cases of racism that are currently happening in South Africa. As it says in the picture right here, no one is illegal. Racism is a harsh discrimination of skin color and religion, and nobody is born as a racist. The kids are taught to be racist by their parents. We believe that justice is to be served as those who are racist.
Sir logo, there are like taglines together we can color the world. Can you put an essay or a piece? Wait, this one or this one?
No,
the bottom.
No,
one.
this one?
Yeah. My thesis statement is that I believe that culture is what mainly causes racism. And my three arguments are that every single kid almost is taught that racism is the right way to go, that other races are not as good as their own race. And the kids grow up in such a culture thinking that it's the right thing to do, and soon they grow up to be adults that are racist. A long time ago in South Africa, there was a law called apartheid, which made the different races live separately, and that caused hatred between all the different races, because the whites got like a better community to live in than the blacks, and so the blacks didn't necessarily like the whites anymore. And almost everyone likes to be around people from their same culture and the same tradition. And all the races, there's so many different races in South Africa, and they have really different cultures, so they don't necessarily get along that well.
Right here, let's hold on to Alright, so my thesis statement is that there are several causes that cause racism, and one particular one is the government. And my first argument is that one of the causes that falls under government is called apartheid, as she explained earlier, which is basically segregation, which is divided by a physical barrier. And another cause, basically, this is my second argument, is that the whites head the government. The blacks, I don't mean to be racist here, but the blacks have almost no say in the government. And the third and final one, that my argument that I'm going to say, is that they live in the same place, really. There's nothing exactly separating them now since apartheid is gone, and they don't really like each other since, well, that's just part of the culture, as she said earlier. And my conclusion is that this is how the government causes racism and desperation, riots, things like that. And this can cause like casualties as police sometimes have to stop racism and protesting. They have to go into the crowd and massacre people. And then basically that's basically how the government is.
Okay, so I have economy, and my thesis statement is that a major problem is occurring in South Africa, which is racism over whites and blacks, and a primary influence on that problem is the economy. My first argument is about education and jobs. In the 1980s, adults would have to wear passes that shows where they work, and if they were unable to show that pass, they were then arrested. And then present day, a predominantly black school in South Africa has only a 4% chance of higher education and employment for jobs. My second argument is homes and where people live. Whites are putting up for sale signs on their houses if they are neighboring blacks because they don't want to be neighbors with blacks. This is a downfall for the economy because once they put up their for sale sign, no one would want to move into that house because they are neighbor to blacks or if they're blacks. And my final argument is population growth. With the population growing, that means that simple goods are needed more, and so there won't be enough for everybody. And so with whites having more power, they will have the first say in what to get. and so the blacks are being left behind. And also, where they live, townships, they are getting more crowded, so it's hard to live.
Alright, so down here to discuss.
Okay, so I believe that history has a big hand in racism because my first and key argument is that the Europeans came to South Africa, and really the whites and blacks and all the racism started with Europeans because the Europeans were white. And it all started with the history of them coming into South Africa, and that's what causes now modern-day racism. My second argument is the separation policy and slavery. So slavery, it was very big, and it was very brutal type of slavery. And even now that there are master and servant laws, it still affects modern day racism now. And a separation policy is apartheid, as they said before. Apartheid was like segregation in the United States, except in a more brutal way. And it wasn't just separating like you see in those pictures where white only bathroom and black only bathroom. It was actual protests. In protests, people were beat up and murdered because they were protesting. And I guess the third argument is the effect on the people, that there are emergencies. The government called out these emergencies that if a group was protesting, the police could come in and kill them or wound them to stop them from protesting. And this had a very big effect on the people. And these historical events, I think, cause modern-day racism today.
We picked Matthew's solution essay, and the problem that he thinks is that causes racism is kids see and experience racism almost every day of their life, and they start thinking that that's the way to live, and that's how the world works. His solution is to let all the different